Welcome back. After the obvious commercial success, and despite the critical failure of White Noise, a sequel was all but inevitable. And the format had a certain quality to it where you could get similar stories out of the same structure. So what did they do? Basically made an in-name only sequel that has barely a passing resemblance to the original film in almost every way. But hey, it's got Nathan Fillion, so it's not a total loss. White Noise The Light could basically be called anything else, and no one would really bat an eye. Well, it's being called a standalone sequel, so they get away with it just a bit. And just like the first film, it tries to start on a serious note. But we're not talking about EVP. This time it's NDE, or near-death experiences, claiming that 774 near-death experiences happen per day in the United States. And these are NDEs in which someone reported seeing a white light. Yet again, the film is being rather naughty here, because as far as I can find, there is no National Centre for Mortality Studies. And that 774 figure actually comes from a 1992 Gallup poll, which you'd recognise from political opinion projections for elections and things like that. And it's 1992 instead of 2007 when this film was released, seemingly because no one seems particularly bothered to research this stuff. But hey, with all the statistics flying around, do you think this film is going to venture into the bullshit and bananas once again? You bet your ass it is. And it's going to do it hard too. Way harder than the first film. Oh yes, you are not prepared. Of course, even during the statistics, the film doesn't bother keeping things serious, as we see flashes of what I assume are ghosts of people, or possibly zombies, and also an image of Satan himself falling from heaven, which unfortunately will be important later. We're then introduced to happy families, the Dale family. Nathan Fillion is Abe Dale, and he and his wife are celebrating an anniversary where he's given an engraved watch. Yeah, I'd give it like 20 minutes for this happy scene to go horribly wrong. As they kiss, Rebecca experiences a headache, which seems to be something she's had since the evening before. Wow, I might have been generous with that 20 minutes. The family visit a diner for breakfast, and while they eat, a suspicious-looking man in a long coat enters looking for something. But things aren't quite right with the family either, as both Rebecca and Abe's son seem to be acting strange. Rebecca especially is acting quite manic, dropping her plate on the floor, and that's when the man approaches the table, rather surprisingly, shoots Rebecca and her son, before blowing his own brains out.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'd say I was really goddamn generous with that 20 minutes. Holy crap, that's a messed up way of starting your film. At least Michael Keaton got to keep his son with him. And it's as if this film saw how its predecessor slowly became darker as it continued, and just said, to hell with it, let's get nuts. Well, after that opening, I'm not surprised everyone needed a break as the film skips ahead 3 months later. And Abe is not doing so well, as you can imagine, lamenting his loss and wondering why he was left behind to suffer. And yeah, the film's not getting any happier soon, as Abe takes a load of pills and effectively kills himself. Now, obviously, Abe needs his near-death experience to initiate the plot, but I have to question why they chose to go to such a depressing place to achieve that end. But fine, whatever. If the writers want to make such a dark story, it's their choice to make. But I do feel sorry for the people choosing to see this film for happy-go-lucky Nathan Fillion, though. Abe is rushed to hospital, and I'm not gonna get insanely pedantic by picking out all the problems with the medical jargon and stuff. All I'll say is, for the most part, they do the necessary steps, just not necessarily in the right order. It's not perfect, but for purposes of drama, it's not the worst. Except for the flatline, which I have to mention because everyone by now knows that flatlining like that doesn't really happen. But hey, at least it tells us he's dead. Abe then sees his tunnel of white light to show his brain is being deprived of oxygen and it's causing him to hallucinate. Oh no, wait, sorry, it's the afterlife, that's right, sorry. And at the end of the tunnel, he sees his wife and son waiting for him. And they really don't look happy to see him at all. His wife looks kind of pissed off. Fortunately, we won't experience the subsequent domestic argument, as the EMTs get defibrillating and he's brought back to life safe and sound. Abe soon wakes up to the face of Katie Sackhoff, who's also in this film, and she's insanely smiley and happy when dealing with a man who may not be in the best of moods. She even changes the TV to a showing of The Bride of Frankenstein, including this line from good old Boris. So not the best choice there, maybe. Also, the use of that film is a rather subtle nod by the director, Patrick Lussier, because he was the editor of the 1996 Doctor Who TV pilot / TV movie, something I have a particular affinity for, and in that film someone watches the original Boris Karloff Frankenstein. Why he chose to have a little in-joke follow-up to that here, I've no idea. Also, Patrick Lussier directed Prophecy 3, which wasn't the worst sequel in the world, so maybe that's a good thing for this film. Abe has a strange experience as static crawls across the TV and moves around the room. Gotta justify the name White Noise somehow. Abe then meets his doctor, Dr. Karras, and yes, that's a very blatant reference to The Exorcist. The doctor also seems to have some kind of glowing aura around him when we look through Abe's eyes. Karras also explains what an NDE is, and describes exactly what Abe experienced. The aura around the Doctor, though, is dismissed as inconsequential and will go away on its own. Abe continues to experience strangeness at work. The radio makes weird noises, and the TV goes out of tune. But then, a big jump scare removes all doubt that it wasn't normal. Outside, looking a little freaked out, Abe follows the strange sounds of static. He mostly just stares at people weirdly for a bit, until he sees one woman who is also surrounded by an aura. Abe, quite rightly, gets his head examined. Despite continuing to see the white light around people, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with Abe's brain. However, when he mentions he's been hearing strange things in static, Karras takes Abe to his office with a familiar setup.
This is my EVP room.
Yes, it turns out, quite conveniently, Karras is also an expert EVP researcher. One of the screens isn't on static though, and rather ironically, that's the one where Abe sees something strange. Karras makes it clear that it's only after being recorded you can see anything, but, quickly analysing the footage, the Doctor does indeed find what Abe saw. So you got your reference to EVP in there, but this is where the film deviates, because Abe won't be using a receiver to see this stuff. Abe is the receiver. Pah! Pause for effect. But do you see what I mean about this film not really being a sequel? I mean, that scene with the EVP stuff wasn't really important to the plot at all, and in fact, the film goes out of its way to say, you remember all that stuff from the first film? Forget it, we're doing our own thing. And boy do they. But one thing that is like the first film, the mentor character Karras, just like Price, is now dead. According to one of the nurses, he had a heart attack. And death seems to be following Abe because when he buys a newspaper, the woman he saw with a white aura is front page news, shot dead. Abe tells his friend about foreseeing someone's gonna die, and the guy is obviously skeptical. But there's one aspect of the story I have a problem with.
Like with Dr. Karras, it could be a couple of days. With the woman in the park, it could be a few hours. It could even be a few minutes, just depending on how strong the light is. I don't know.
It's interesting that Abe points out that he could predict someone's death days in advance, because, spoilers here, the only people he actively tries to save will be people immediately about to die. Now, there's two reasons why. First, probably because the filmmakers really like the whole action-packed running to save someone scene. Does kind of make the film feel like a Final Destination knockoff, though, when it could have added a bit more suspense and tension with Abe only having a certain amount of time to rescue someone. The other reason why they didn't do that is probably because, much like White Noise 1, how White Noise 2 starts, sure as hell isn't where it ends up. There's also a random reference when Abe's friend describes his abilities as a superpower.
Call it what you want, Abe, but that sure as hell sounds like some superhero cap and tight pants bullshit to me, man.
Which, if you're not aware, is quite a blatant reference...
Yes, sir, Captain Tight Pants.
...to Firefly. People really seem unable to not make Firefly jokes around Fillion. Outside, Abe continues to see people with white auras, like a little girl, a cyclist who pretty much anyone could tell was gonna die soon by the way he rides about, and a kissing couple to pour some salt into Abe's wound. However, when out jogging that night, Abe sees a homeless guy struggling with a shopping trolley on some train tracks. Again, don't really need superpowers to see where this is going.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Abe speaking for all of us there. And in a rather surprising twist, Abe runs to try and help the guy, but he fails to save him, as the train keeps on rolling and kills him. And this is where the film made me take notice, because I will say now, this film has quite a few clever twists and subversions. What we just saw being one of them. The fact that Abe didn't save the guy, firstly, shows us that he's not perfect. But also, the fact that he didn't save him gives him more of a reason not to ignore it later. Basically, they gave a protagonist a credible reason to do good outside of the generic "he's a good person" excuse. That night, Abe has a nightmare of a child in front of a TV with an upside-down cross on it. And yes, this is another film that doesn't understand that an upside-down cross isn't an evil symbol. Abe is soon woken up by sounds in the house and sees a light coming from downstairs. Taking a baseball bat with him, he investigates and is jump-scared by a few ghosts, making Abe inadvertently destroy his TV. Now, my initial reaction to that was it was a pointless jump scare. However, when I think about it, what if the ghosts were deliberately trying to cut Abe off from the static giving him instructions? I'm going to leave that one there for now, but just keep it in mind. Abe phones his friend and runs off pretty quickly. However, he doesn't get far before the static and the white light appears again. This time, a man fixing his truck. Abe tries to get him to move, seeing the bumper about to give way. The guy is an idiot, though, and does nothing. So Abe is forced to drag him out of the way, risking attack. But then, a speeding car hits the truck, causing it to fall, making that Abe's first successfully saved life. Back home, Abe is feeling good about himself, as he tells his family the good deeds he's done, and then makes a notch on a mirror. Kinda weird he's keeping score, but fair enough. The next day, Abe gets more static direction. Following it, he sees a man on a bridge. But don't worry, he's not gonna jump. It's a bit more weird and convoluted than that. The man's girlfriend bumps into some other men, and instead of just getting angry, they want to sexually assault her as well. And when the guy intervenes, he gets the shit beaten out of him. Abe shows up to get them to stop, and when they do, the guy launches and goes over the railing. But fortunately for him, Abe pulls him up to safety. And he gets to add another notch to his score. Well, that's certainly a ridiculously convoluted series of events. It sort of feels like the filmmakers were trying to subvert expectations, but they went a bit too far into absurdity. Also, it does seem like if Abe hadn't shown up, the guy wouldn't have jumped off the bridge in the first place, so I'm not too sure what's going on there. I mean, it's possible that he just changed his death from those thugs to him jumping off the bridge, but I guess we'll never know. Abe decides to check on the guy he saved, and he gets his friend to bring all the information about the shooting, which will be a bit more important later. And while checking, he gets another static message. They really aren't giving him much of a break, are they? It at first seems like just a faulty light, but that's when he gets jump scared again by the epileptic fit granny. And on the CCTV, he sees his nurse from earlier is now the one about to die.
Oh, come on.
I really like the near constant "you gotta be kidding me with this shit" attitude that Abe has throughout the film. It's a very human reaction. It certainly feels like how I would react in a situation like this. I feel very connected to Abe right now. So yeah, more running ensues, and again with the convoluted. Because the nurse, Shirley, isn't just going to get killed by a speeding car or anything like that. No, someone actually tries to abduct her and stab her when she won't cooperate. Once more, with the overly implausible circumstances. Abe saves the day again, of course, and the attacker speeds off. Never to be mentioned again, I might add. You'd think something like that would garner a small police investigation, but no. The would-be murderer runs off into the night and out of the film entirely, which is one hell of a missed opportunity. I mean, why include a scenario like that if you're not going to expand on the idea and make it something important later? You've heard of Chekhov's gun. This is Chekhov's blue balls. After the two have reacquainted, Sherry finds Abe's watch broken. She fixes him up, but there wasn't too much damage, and we find out that Sherry's husband died. The White Noise universe has a rather overabundance of people with tragic backstories, it seems. Back home, Abe adds another notch to his mirror. However, 2 out of 3 times he's done that, this happens. Implying something far more sinister is going on here. And while Abe watches old footage of his wife and son, someone familiar shows up. Yes, the man who shot them saved them from a collision with a bus. And this is where the film develops into something a little more clever and unexpected. Abe prints out a screenshot of the guy's face. Genuinely no idea why, because he never looks at the printout. Oh wait, it's so we can have a spooky moment, which isn't that spooky, of the printer making multiple copies. Hey, printers are tricky, that happens sometimes. But using an old newspaper article, Abe manages to find the guy's name, Henry Kane, and an address to find out more information. Wait a second, the guy's name is Henry Kane? Kane and Abe? Seriously? We're doing this, are we? That's genuinely something you want to put into a film, is it? Don't get me wrong. This film has some clever ideas. That ain't one of them. And when Abe checks on his printout, he's then punched in the soul by a ghost. These would have to be the most dickish ghosts I've ever seen. They're just like messing with the guy for some reason. Abe visits Henry Kane's former house. Good God, they're going hard on the upside-down cross thing, aren't they? Kane's wife answers the door, and she already knows who Abe is, letting him inside. And just like the dream from earlier, Abe sees Henry's son with the TV flashing the upside-down cross again. Please, film, stop with the upside-down crosses. You're just making yourself look stupid now. I know they won't be stopping. But this cliche really needs to change in films because it's just so bloody lazy. Kane's wife apologises to Abe, but here comes the kicker. Kane had a near-death experience, and after he came back, just like Abe, he started experiencing EVP and seeing the white light. So Kane went about saving people. Abe sees Kane's office, which is filled with articles of accidents, and although it's quick, there's even an article of Mary Freeman from the first film, which is honestly a nice touch. I'm pretty sure they felt forced to reference the first film because there's really nothing else anymore linking these two films. We've skewed into an alternate tangent at this point, to say the least. Abe finds a note saying, if you save somebody's life, you are responsible for it. And am I the only one who thought that looked like the world's most preachy fortune cookie note? Kane's Bible is also found, and in the back he kept score of the people he saved as well, along with names and dates, including Abe's wife and son. And while going through Kane's incoherent ramblings, the TVs around Abe turn on, and more ghosts appear for a pointlessly distracting fireworks display, and then buggering off again. Kane's wife returns, and this is when the other shoe comes cascading from the sky, because she reveals that, despite shooting himself in the head, Kane is still alive and incarcerated in a mental institution. But given the most recent revelations, Abe wastes no time in visiting him. The orderly guides Abe, warning him that Kane is nuts, and talking about seeing dead people, which obviously isn't what Abe asks about first. He wants to know why he killed his wife and son, and Kane lays it out matter-of-factly, to quote, if saved, must kill, that there are consequences to saving people. But Kane's not the most coherent, especially when he turns around and we see he's got some of the Harvey Dent face. But just before Kane gets violent, he shouts the phrase, Tria Mera. Fortunately for Abe, orderlies arrive to subdue Kane. The Tria Mera thing is where the film starts channeling The Omen and gets really comfortable with the whole Satan cliches it's been skirting around this whole time. And honestly, it gets pretty convoluted as well. And you know how this film likes to be convoluted. But I will try to explain as we go on. Abe studies the Bible and notes he took. And yeah, in one of the books, there's an upside-down cross saying the devil's signature. Which just makes me feel bad for St. Peter. He's always getting the shaft over this upside-down business. Give the man a break! Fortunately, all the ludicrous Omen ripping off horseshit... I reiterate, horseshit, is broken up when Sherry turns up with some cheap wine as a thank you for saving her life. Abe says he can't because he's married, which is a bit presumptuous. Sherry knows why he was in the hospital though and convinces him to have a drink with her. While that goes on, we switch back to the guy Abe saved earlier, and he's having a bit of an exorcist moment with creepy nightmare imagery and seizures. This would be those consequences Kane spoke about. There's a heart-to-heart between Abe and Sherry trying to help him through the grief, and then there's this.
Come on.
Where are we going?
O'Malley's.
Which is another quite indulgent reference to Fillion and Two Guys and a Girl. Not sure why Fillion's getting all the love. Where's the Battlestar Galactica references? Can't someone say frack at least once? And perhaps Abe wasn't being presumptuous when he said he's married, as he and Sherry share a kiss. But don't worry, it's explicitly designed to give the last 30 minutes of the film more emotional weight than it honestly deserves. There's then a news report of a big accident which killed several people. Abe immediately recognises the van and the old man driving it, and now he starts to understand the problem. Now, your initial reaction, much like mine, might be to assume that how it works is if Abe saves someone's life, they would then accidentally or intentionally end up taking someone else's life at a later date, as a sort of cause and effect, destiny and fate sort of thing. But that forgets the whole Satan angle they've not so subtly weaved into the narrative, meaning things are going to get ludicrous and over the top. Back home, Abe goes through all the people that Kane saved and finds that 3 days after being saved, they were all involved in some incident where they caused the death of other people. And we also see how Kane came to the same conclusion.
On the third day, Christ shall rise again. What about the devil? What does he do on the third day?
What does the devil do? Why does Satan enter the story at all? Why does the devil have to do anything? And if he does the devil have to do something every time Christ does? Jesus ate an apple. Yeah, but what about the devil? What does the devil do? I don't get it. But I told you things are going to be ridiculous, and it doesn't stop there, because the film has both Abe and Kane recite Revelations 13:18. How they can do it with a straight face, I've no idea. I'm pretty sure everyone knows Revelation 13:18. It's the one that goes, "Here is wisdom. Let him who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number. Its number is 666. Which means that all I can think about now is Iron Maiden. Also, no one tell these filmmakers that there is significant evidence to suggest that the number of the beast was supposed to be 616. There's a lot of crap at this part of the film. I'm sorry if it's repetitive, but it's how the film is. Because next comes the calculating things that equal 666 scene. Because Abe, just like Kane, works out that ancient Greek, the prominent language at the time of the Bible, has numbers corresponding with their letters. First, he tries it with the phrase third day and gets nothing significant. But then he tries what Kane said, tria mera. And what do you know? It works out to being 666. Who'd have guessed that? Except there's two problems here. First and foremost, tria mera does not make 666. It makes 557. Apparently the calculation does work if you take into account that upper and lowercase letters have different values, but the film doesn't do that. Also, tria mera does not mean third day. The correct translation is trite imera. But even then, the calculation doesn't work, as it comes to 1047. So the entire scene is completely stupid. I regret saying that this film had some clever ideas, because this makes me hate it with a passion. However, I begrudgingly have to give the film back some of its kudos, because within all that crap we dissected, there's the clever idea of this white light not being from God. Abe has been working for Satan instead, because another name for Satan is Lucifer, which means bringer of light. If they'd have gotten rid of all the other stuff and just had that as their revelation, I wouldn't be so annoyed. But they just can't help getting convoluted in everything. And now Abe realises that it's been 3 days since he saved the guy on the bridge, as we see him packing a gun for work. The guy works as a hotel lobby pianist, and as he plays, he gets more and more erratic. And while rushing to get there, Abe drives past the bus stop the old man collided with. But it's only for more jump scares from ghosts. Which makes me wonder, actually, because it's said that Cain and Abe are getting tormented by the ghosts of the people who died as a result of the people they saved. But with Abe, he was getting bitch-slapped by ghosts way before he saved anyone, or before anyone else died. So that's just nonsensical. I think the film just enjoyed having its jump scares. Hello everybody, Editing Deusdaecon here with a bit of clarification, because if I don't, I'll get a load of comments about it. I just said that Abe was seeing ghosts before anyone else died. Now, obviously, people like Dr. Karras and the homeless guy died, but I was referring to deaths as a result of Abe's life-saving activities. Okay? Just needed to clear that up. The guy in the hotel gets so manic that someone is forced to stop him playing, and as Abe arrives, he pulls his gun. Abe activates the fire alarm before he shoots, but while he's being restrained, he pushes the piano off the balcony, killing several people, including his girlfriend. Yeah, as we previously established, Abe is really bad at the whole hero shtick. Abe does stop the guy from shooting himself, though, asking him why he did it, but the guy just says he shouldn't have saved his life. Now, I may be jumping to conclusions here, but it feels like the film is gonna be saying a man was right to shoot a child in the face. No, that's ridiculous. Clearly, Abe is gonna find an alternative way to save the day that Cain didn't think of. I'm sure that's what they're gonna go with. Yeah? Abe's not doing so good, understandably, and destroys the mirror. In the pieces, he finds the watch that was broken, and the exact time he knows Sherry will be going mental, which just so happens to be during a children's choir recital, so the stakes are pretty high. And while driving to the recital, the biker from the start is now a ghost and rides through the car, freaking Abe out. And now I'm really goddamn confused, because Abe specifically did not save him, and was not involved with his death. So why the hell is Abe seeing him? Is everyone on the planet who dies gonna use Abe as their personal spectral punching bag now? Abe reaches the recital before anything kicks off, and he still has the piano guy's gun. And yeah, they're really doing this. Abe is not even bothering with an alternative plan. He's seriously gonna shoot someone as his only option. This film is genuinely trying to make a multiple, including a child, murderer sympathetic. Jesus Christ! Abe speaks with Sherry and immediately acts like a crazy person, first by trying to drag her outside and then telling her how he shouldn't have saved her. He's immediately ejected from the place by security, but he waits outside and follows her. Abe is straight up acting like the bad guy now. And again, it's so weird that the film is trying to say that Abe is in the right for wanting to shoot someone. What the hell is the message here? And in a cruel twist of fate, Abe tracks Sherry to the diner where his family was killed. But before he goes, he looks in the mirror and sees he himself has a white light aura now. So it's going to be another murder-suicide, it seems. Abe and Sherry speak. Fortunately, she's not an idiot and figured out what's going on, and actually accepts the situation, which is a nice way to let your main character literally get away with murder. Abe pulls the gun, but instead of shooting, he just meanders for a bit while the cops in the diner get ready to take him out, which they do quite effectively. And it honestly would be absolutely hilarious if the film just ended right there, and be in keeping with Abe being pretty useless throughout the film. Also, it would be a good connection to the last film, in which the main character died pointlessly at the end. Unfortunately not. However, it's still not exactly the hallmark ending you expect from these kind of films either. So Abe dies while still telling Sherry she has to die. So good use of your last words there. And this time, Sherry tries to go for the gun but is stopped by the cops as they get her to an ambulance outside just as she starts freaking out, possession style. Also, the ambulance just leaves with Sherry. Guys, you don't want to take the potentially dying guy? You're just going to leave him there? Hell, even if he is dead, you'd think they'd want to take away the body. And also, he's officially a criminal, so even more reason to take him away from the scene. It's pretty weird that they'd take the perfectly healthy woman and not the person who was shot.
She's going into shock. Let's get out of here.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's in shock. Of course, that takes priority. In the diner, the TV starts to spark and then something explodes from it and chases after the ambulance along the wires above the road. And in the ambulance, Sherry is going even more mental until eventually... Whoa, okay. Getting some serious Oculus flashbacks right now. Who knew Katie Sackhoff was the go-to crazy possessed lady? While she continues to freak out, further on down the road, a tanker has capsized in the road, stopping a bus full of people from moving. And that's what the ambulance is heading straight for. But it's Ghost Abe to the rescue as he appears to Sherry. And does he save her from the possession? No! He straight up kills her with magic. And then appears in front of the ambulance, making it swerve and stopping it from hitting the bus. And then finally, Abe gets what he wanted this entire time. To die and be with his family. Oh, and Kane back in the asylum is still tormented by ghosts. Oh well. So that was White Noise the Light. And what the hell is the message here? That people are better off dead? That suicide is the answer? Don't help anyone because Satan? Much like the first film, White Noise 2 seems to end in a completely different position from where it started. And yeah, it's one hell of a bold move to try and get people to sympathise with someone shooting a child in the face. And no, I'm not moving away from that because that's what the film honestly is saying and it's profoundly fucked up. And it's such a shame because there are some really clever ideas here. The idea of the light being from the devil and not God is a clever subversion, but like everything in this film, they make it far too convoluted with information that is just fundamentally and factually wrong, frankly. Which shows a lack of research on the writer's part too, which, if you know me, that's something I can't abide. And lastly, just like Michael Keaton previously, Nathan Fillion was generic as hell. They could have gotten anyone for that role, and it would be exactly the same. Oh, but they couldn't use all their clever references to Firefly and Two Guys and a Girl. So that's a good trade-off, I guess. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching, and also a huge thank you to everyone who has chosen to donate to the Patreon so far. Their names are on the screen right now. And if you wish to donate to the Patreon, you'll not only be helping to keep the channel running, but also help toward the goal of reviewing all 3 series of the Hannibal TV show. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please feel free to visit the Patreon page on screen right now, or in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.